So he's going to start to open his hips well before he reaches the top of his backswing and well before the club starts back down.
Hey everyone, in this video we're going to analyze Bryson DeChambeau's golf swing. Now he's a very unique golfer and there's not a whole lot that I would have the average everyday player mimic in his golf swing, but I think we can find a few little tidbits that are going to help your game improve as well. But before we get to that, our community, it's growing and I want it to continue to grow, and you can help us do that. And the way you can do that is by liking this video when it's over, subscribing to my YouTube channel, which the easiest way to do that is that little red box in the bottom of this video. And all that does is alert you when I have new videos available for you to watch, and then commenting. What did you like? What questions do you have? And maybe what are some ideas of some future videos you'd like to see?
So the first thing I'd like to do is congratulate Bryson on his victory at the 2020 U.S. Open at Winged Foot in a very impressive final round he was able to put together to secure the win. So in this video, I'm going to identify two unique things that Bryson does in his golf swing. And listen, I could put a 2-hour video together about the unique swing, the unique things he does in his golf swing, but I'm going to keep it to 2 points. I'm going to talk about a power move that he uses at the top of his backswing that we see with other players. And then I'm going to find two things to help the everyday player that we can mimic, that we can copy, because there's very few things that we will mimic or copy. I'm going to pinpoint one or two things that we can do that he does very well that will help us with our driving. But before we get to that, I want to touch on his equipment. So it was mentioned a few times during the broadcast on Sunday that his putter has more loft on it than his driver. And that's true. His putter has 6 degrees of loft. His driver has 5 degrees of loft. And what I want you to understand here is Bryson's a very strong young man who swings the club very, very fast. And that 5-degree driver provides the best launch and the best spin rate for him to optimize what he's doing when he drives the golf ball. Now, I'm partnered with True Spec Golf at my golf school, and I have students from my golf school. They have students come in that get fit, and we're constantly adding loft to the driver. So going out and buying a 5-degree driver is not the fix to what ails you. The other thing I want to mention, and I get asked all the time, is about the one-length clubs. And I can tell you, if you cannot swing your 7-iron at 95 miles per hour or faster, that will not work for you, because you're not going to see a difference between a lot of your clubs. A lot of them are going to go the same distance. So again, because Bryson is so strong and swings so fast, the one-length club works for him. One last thing I want to touch on, and then we're going to take a deep dive into his golf swing here, is that I want to talk about Bryson's philosophy on the golf swing. So what he tries to do is he tries to eliminate variables in his golf swing. So he gets rid of levers, and he gets rid of the rolling of the forearms, the supination, the pronation. He wants to keep the club face very square to the path, and he thinks of the path of the golf club like a Ferris wheel or like a circle around his head. So you can think of kind of an Iron Byron machine that Ping uses, and the club travels very upright, and he keeps the face very square to that upright path. So now let's take a look at some of the unique things that he does. So I'm going to start with his grip. Bryson, relative to other players and certainly other tour players, has a very weak left-hand grip. And this helps him with keeping that face very square to, or giving him a feeling of keeping the face very square to the line or the circle that he is swinging on. And another reason, or another way to identify that it's weak, is you can see the V between the thumb and the index finger points to his left shoulder. With the students I teach day in and day out, really what we're looking for is that V to be just a little right of the chin, as far right as that right shoulder. So he starts with a very weak lead hand grip relative to other players. The next thing, or the next point in the golf swing I want to look at, is when his left arm is parallel to the ground. And if I had a bunch of other tour players here that I was analyzing, what we would see when that left arm is parallel to the ground is we would see the club pointing to the sky. We'd see a 90-degree angle there. With his club, we can see that it's more than a 90-degree angle. The club is still pointing way behind him. He has eliminated that lever, and if most players eliminated that lever, they would create less club head speed and hit the ball shorter. But Bryson will do some things later in the top of his backswing that make up for this. And again, it's unique to him and it works for him, not necessarily something that I would teach every student that steps on the lesson tee. So as we approach the top of his backswing, we can see he starts to set those angles. And so he is what we call a late setter of the golf club. He sets the club more at the top of his backswing versus early in his backswing. Now there's one other thing I wanted to point out. So those are the two unique things he does. He has a weaker grip at address, and then he hinges the club. He's a late setter of the club, hinges it really late, and really loads it in at the top of the backswing and at the start of the downswing. Now the power move that I was talking about that we see with a lot of very long hitters, I think Rory McIlroy probably does it better than anybody, is we'll argue that this is probably the top of his backswing and when he starts to change directions with the golf club. But I want you to notice that his right hip, or his trail hip, is going to start to move back towards the target. So he's going to start to open his hips well before he reaches the top of his backswing and well before the club starts back down. The differential and the separation that this creates is very powerful, and you see it with a lot of the long distance players. All right, so what are a couple things? By the way, that's a very expert move and not something I would go out to the driving range and try and create tomorrow. So what are a couple things that we, the average daily golfer, the average amateur golfer, can pick up from Bryson that's going to help our game? And the first thing I want to point out is his spine tilt away from the target. So we can see his spine is tilted away from the target. This is really important with the driver because it helps us to hit up on the driver. And the easiest way I have to get my students in this position is by telling them to point their shoulders as high as they'd like to see the ball go. So you can see he's pointed his lead shoulder, his left shoulder, up into the sky, and when he does this, this creates a nice tilt of his spine away from the target, and it helps him to hit up on the golf ball and deliver the club head as efficiently as possible. Now the next thing I want to look at is that extension that he gets. We could all benefit from this nice, low, long takeaway that he creates. But something aside from that, I want to pay attention to what we call his hand path, or where his hands are at during the swing. So here's where they are on the backswing, so they're very wide. And then we'll notice on the downswing, they get closer to him. They're very narrow. And there's a lot of body movements that are going on that are helping this. So he goes from wide to narrow, and then on the forward side of his swing, or the front side of his swing, or the follow-through, we see he gets very wide again. So he goes wide, narrow, to wide. So you can see very wide here, narrow in the downswing, for very wide on the follow-through. And again, this is something that we see with all the power players: Rory McIlroy, Dustin Johnson, Matthew Wolff, just to name a few. You're going to see this move, and it's something that you can start to do, you can work on the driving range, paired with that little bit of spine tilt, aiming those shoulders as high as you can, swing it wide, narrow to wide, and you'll hit it much further.
So now you have a better understanding of Bryson DeChambeau's golf swing and why it works for him and a few little things that you can do to help your game improve as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. There are 2 more playing here right now that I promise will continue to help you improve your game. And remember, please like, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and comment.